In the 1980s, America was in the middle of a moral panic. All over the country, children were accusing parents and caretakers of satanic ritual abuse. Today, in Truth Be Told, we are talking the Satanic Panic.
Satan.
To devil worship. Sacrificing in their animal mutilation, they'll do it within a pentagram.
That the most serious or perhaps the most dangerous kind of devil worship comes in the form of underground cults.
Hello, lovely listeners. My name is Lauren Hoffman, an intern here at Truth Be Told in UBN Go. I'll be standing in today as your host this Wednesday. If you follow us over on TikTok at The Club Paranormal, you may recognize my voice from our History of Satan video, where I got told to turn back to God for suggesting that God was a little complacent in the story of Job. So I figured let's keep that ball rolling with the Satanic Panic. Let's go back in time to the 1980s, the era of rock and roll, MTV, and Back to the Future. But it was also an era where allegations of satanic ritual abuse, or SRA, was running rampant. These allegations included physical and/or sexual abuse. Often it was teachers, caretakers, and wealthy elites that were accused of SRA, or even inducting children into the satanic cult. Conspiracy theories became so bad that people claimed there was a hidden holocaust of children being ritualistically killed, and the only reason the world didn't know about it was because Satanists had infiltrated our media and our government. Some even believed that women were being held captive and used as breeders to make an unlimited baby supply for sacrifices. Satanists weren't kidnapping children, they were manufacturing them like cattle. Satanists were essentially the 80s Antifa. Humanity has a long history of similar fears, usually people that have been dubbed as others. This includes witch hunts, McCarthyism, and blood libel, which is an anti-Semitic superstitious belief that Jews ritualistically killed Christian children. Even today, parents are fearful of teachers teaching the woke agenda and turning children gay or trans. All these ideas were used to hurt innocent people, and the Satanic Panic was no different. A group that added to the Satanic Panic frenzy was BAD, or Bothered by Dungeons and Dragons. The organization was founded by Patricia Poling and the director of National Coalition of TV Violence, Thomas Radrick. BAD believed that D&D was a method of recruiting children into the satanic cult. If you remember Season 4 of Stranger Things, it's essentially that.
Dungeons and Dragons emphasizes black and white witchcraft. It creates a world of fear and death. Dr. Gary North says, Dungeons and Dragons is the most effectively, most magnificently packaged, most profitably marketed, the most thoroughly researched introduction to the occult in man's recorded history.
But why did this start? What was the catalyst to all this fear around Satan? Well, it all starts with the book, Michelle Remembers.
The book is called Michelle Remembers. The authors are Michelle Smith and Lawrence Pasder, MD, who, acting as a psychiatrist, extracted from her bizarre childhood memories of Satan, which have shocked many people. And this may or may not affect your religious sensibilities as to whether or not you believe in Satan as a real live evil spirit, just as live as those who believe in the presence of God.
Michelle Remembers was co-written by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pasder and his patient and future wife, Michelle Smith. Ethically, a psychiatrist marrying his own patient is questionable. In Michelle Remembers, Michelle recounts a time when her own mother locked her in a basement and used her to perform satanic rituals. Eventually, this accumulated in a portal to hell opening up and Satan entering our world. According to Michelle, the Virgin Mary and the Archangel Michael stepped in and forced Satan back, saving humanity. However, this story has long been debunked. There is photo evidence of Michelle healthy and at school during the time she claimed her mother locked her in a basement for a month. Pasder, her psychologist, was using a now discredited method of recovered memory therapy. The goal of recovered memory therapy is to retrieve traumatic memories that have been buried by the subconscious. However, RMT is a disproven treatment, as the method does not recover memories, but rather implants memories that the patient now perceives as real. It's almost like being brainwashed. So to recount, Pasder brainwashed his patient, used her to make a profit off of a book, and then married her. And with the release of Michelle Remembers, RMT and satanic ritual abuse became the hot new thing. Pazder became a celebrity and gave consultations to over 1,000 cases of SRA, the most famous case being the McMartin preschool trial.
What made this case so sensational, so gruesome, was the accusation that 41 youngsters over a 6-year period had not just been sexually molested, but had also been forced to participate in satanic rites and pornographic pictures. There were also charges that to keep the children quiet, animals had been mutilated before their eyes. To add to the sensationalism, the 7 people arrested were not only pillars of the community, they were also responsible for the children's welfare.
In 1983, Judy Johnson, the mother of a student at McMartin Preschool, had filed a police report stating her husband and Ray Buckley, a teacher at McMartin, had sexually abused her son. Johnson made these accusations based on the fact her son was having painful bowel movement. She also accused the daycare staff of having sexual intercourse with animals and said that she saw Buckley flying in the air. Buckley was questioned but never prosecuted due to the lack of evidence. Johnson was later diagnosed and hospitalized for acute paranoid schizophrenia. In 1986, she was found dead in her home due to alcohol poisoning. The investigation could have ended there, but on September 8th, 1983, a letter was sent to every parent who had a child enrolled at McMartin Preschool, stating that their children might have been sexually abused, and asking the parent to question their child. Now, I don't know if sending the letter was the right thing to do. On one hand, parents have the right to know that there is a concern regarding the safety of their children, and that an employee is being investigated for sexual abuse. On the other hand, mass panic broke out. Several hundred children were interviewed by the Children's Institute International, an abuse therapy clinic run by Key McFarland. Key McFarland would be the person that added gasoline to the fire. McFarland had implemented a new technique of questioning children about supposed abuse. He would present the children with an anatomically correct doll, and ask them where an adult had touched them. This method, however, wasn't the problem. The problem was McFarland would encourage children when they accused people of abuse, and punish them when they denied being abused at all. This led to some children accusing people who they didn't do anything, because they thought if they said anything but that they were abused, they would get punished for it.
Babette Spittler was one of the defendants. A teacher at the school, she was charged with molestation and jailed for 2.5 months before the charges were dropped. She says McFarland brainwashed the children.
She had no proof of anything when she interviewed any of those kids. But she didn't assume that anybody was innocent. She assumed we were all guilty.
But the children in the interviews said that they had been...
Do they really? Or are the puppets saying something happened after they'd been questioned and questioned and questioned?
They met with me for an hour, and they were gone out of my life and I out of theirs. The concept that somehow magically this could have turned them into children who came to believe that they were raped and sodomized is an incredible one to me.
During the trials, many of the accusations made were bizarre. It was alleged that in addition to being sexually abused, they saw witches fly, traveled in a hot air balloon, and were taken through a network of underground tunnels. There were claims of orgies at car washes and airports, children being flushed down toilets to secret rooms. One child even identified actor Chuck Norris as one of the abusers. As for the secret tunnels beneath the school, several excavations were made, but no evidence of any secret chambers or tunnels were found. The case lasted 7 years, but resulted in no convictions, and all charges were dropped in 1990. The McMartin preschool trial had become the longest and the most expensive series of criminal trials in American history. Despite all the evidence that the McMartins were innocent, I don't want to discredit the experiences that the family and children went through. All of this was real to them, and many still claim to this day that there was serious abuse going on behind the scenes at the preschool.
Maybe when all is said and done, when the jury in the McMartin preschool case has sifted through the more than 50,000 pages of trial transcripts, it may be that there will be one or more findings of guilt. It may be, in other words, that the legal process produces the conclusion that some little children actually were sexually abused. But it is doubtful that anyone will conclude that the way this trial was handled and covered by the media reflects much credit on either U.S. journalism or the U.S. legal system. Innocent people have had their reputations smeared and their lives turned upside down. very young children who may or may not have been sexually abused have certainly been traumatized by endless hours of relentless examination and cross-examination in pretrial and courtroom hearings. Whatever else will be said about the McMartin case, it will never be cited as a proud example of our criminal justice system.
A silver lining of the Satanic Panic is the push for the government to fund child protective services. But the Satanic Panic did more harm than good. The biggest criticism is that it buried and left behind the children that were actually experiencing abuse. Because during this era, if it wasn't Satan, it wasn't that bad. Today it is believed that most cases of SRA are either caused by false memory syndrome, caused by the use of MRT, or dissociative identity disorder, or DID, previously known as multi-personality disorder. Today we can see a similar scenario happening, like with the fear of education being too woke. Fear is contagious, and so is misinformation. That's the end of our show. I've been Lauren Hoffman, stepping in as your host for today. Make sure to follow us at The Club Paranormal on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and have a lovely day.